Thank you for having me. I decided to wear some of the wardrobe.
I noticed that. I was just about to point that out. The scene where you're kind of having your descent into madness. You're wearing that same jacket. The first time I saw this was the Beyond Fest drive-in screening. I'm wondering, was anybody else here for that one? Yeah, a few people were.
What's up? It was great, man.
Okay, cool.
They paired it with the Burbs, right?
Yeah, The Burbs, my favorite movie. Yeah, fun double feature. It's also funny because when you're doing a drive-in screening, you never hear anybody laugh, so you never know it's going to work until the screening is like that.
Was that the first time you saw it with an audience? Because it came out during the lockdown, right?
Yeah, that was the first time we watched it. It was the premiere. It was the LA premiere of it. And then the only other time I saw it with a crowd, apart from tonight, was at a film festival in Germany. And it was the first time where I was like, oh, that joke worked. Okay, cool. It was very fulfilling.
I know you came in towards the end, but people were really cracking up tonight.
Yeah, it's a funny movie.
Yeah.
There's something about my facial expressions of watching this guy stress the fuck out that's just really, really funny. Brett, my editor of the film, is here too. Give him a round of applause to Brett. A lot of the comic timing Brett and I come together.
Yeah, I mean, I'll skip ahead to that question. The editing is fantastic in this movie, and I was wondering, because there's so many intercuts, like in the scene where they're interviewing the witnesses and stuff like that, and then when you're kicking back some of the shots, and even the wolf attack is intercut when you're talking to the coroner and stuff like that. How much of that was found in the edit, or did you structure it that way?
Some of it. So I had already done a feature a year and a half prior, maybe a year prior, called Thunder Road, and a lot of that movie's editing is based off of the main character's biology of if he's moving from left to right, we can cut doing left to right. And I kind of discovered that editing style on that movie, and then we went pretty extreme with this one. So there's a moment where I pour milk on myself and in a completely different location, and I do this one move, and then we cut to me coming into the hospital with the same move. And so some of that is planned, but the sequence you're talking about with the interrogation montage, we shot afterwards. We came back from principal photography, and then we were like, I think we need this other investigative, interrogation montage. And so Brett was very helpful doing a lot of that stuff of how do we make this thing? We need basically a minute and a half of something funny that's also gives us more teases of what the audience is looking for.
It keeps the pace going really well, and in addition to being a werewolf movie, this is what I would call an investigative horror movie too. Sure. And in reading some of your past interviews on this project, I know that you've talked about some of your influences, but I was wondering if you could share what some of your biggest sources of inspiration were when you were writing this.
Yeah, we kept saying it was Zodiac as a comedy. Where it was so much of the murder montages. A lot of filmmakers do that, but Zodiac is introduce new characters, somebody's going to get murdered, and then it cuts to the investigation of that. Memories of Murder is the same way. And it's a bunch of good detective movies that do the same thing. But with this one, it was we're so heavily inspired by Fincher, and that whole sequence of me going back to the crime scene with all the music, it feels like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo or something.
Yeah, but obviously with more comedy. I'm wondering, in that regard, the tone balances really well, and how do you keep the stakes serious and balance that comedic tone? I found that really interesting.
I do it 1,000 times. In the writing process, I do it all out loud to see if it's gonna work, and then I'll stress test it with friends, where I'll be I'm thinking about this for this moment, and if they laugh and it's not ridiculous, I'm no, you got to take that out. I feel I have a good friend group where we can try that out. My buddy Dustin Hahn, who plays the townsfolk guy who's I'm not paying taxes in this town anymore. He's so funny. That bit, there's a moment I'm talking to my daughter Chloe in the film, and I go, I'm she's bugging me out. She's do you think it's because your mom left that you're stressed out? And I'm I thought we were doing math homework here. And that is a joke because I'm trying to get out of this accountability of talking about serious stuff.
Yeah.
And so really, the comedy is watching somebody just be super stressed and take it out on anybody around them. That's funny. I don't know.
And we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
But did
that
you...
poor librarian, every single time,
Ray. He gets it the worst.
Yeah, that'd have been lights out for
Could have been a shooting.
That could have ended in a shooting.
Yeah.
If that had been another member of my team, that could have ended in a shooting. Quick librarian note. It goes, police officers ask you to take out all the spooky books in the library. Maybe don't sneak up on them. It's so bad.
It's so funny because it obviously is this descent into alcoholism, this
Yeah.
regression into that, but you treat it with such a light touch that's almost to say, like, we've seen stories that address this
Yeah.
in other ways, but my spin on it is kind of like pointing out a lot of the absurdity of it too, and I appreciated that. The writing in this feels very fresh, and it plays really well.
Thanks.
So did you set out to do like your spin on a werewolf movie? Like, I know that you're inspired by a lot of investigative horror. Were you kind of like, I have this concept and it can be like a werewolf movie, or were you like, what would my werewolf movie look like?
Honestly, I had the idea. I was watching True Detective Season 1, and they keep going the tall man. They keep on referring to him as, and then when you get to the guy, he's not that tall. And then I was like, the Yellow King, that guy.
Yeah.
And I love that show. It's really good. But I was like, man, that's really interesting. If there was just like a really tall, spooky guy. The guy from It Follows is super tall. That moment was really frightening. And I was like, it'd be really neat to like have a dude stand up to his full height, and then that's the reveal. Like, oh, absolutely, this is the killer. And then we thought about doing it in the door frame, and he goes above the door, and it's very frightening. It was funny, we were like in probably like day 10 or 11 of the shoot, and then Will Madden came out and did that bit in the doorway and slammed the door, and everybody on the other side of the door, the crew, was just like, oh, this is going to be a good movie. It took 11 days of production to realize that, but Will is so good. Will's my buddy's younger brother. He's 5 years younger than us. He's like, and he was the first person I cast. I was like, the studio wanted to have somebody famous, and I was like, if it was somebody famous, everybody's going to know that Rainn Wilson's the bad guy,
Yeah.
obviously. And then I was like, we also need to cast somebody early so we could fit them to the werewolf outfit.
Right.
And we do it with Will, and they were like, yeah, that's fine, use your buddy. And I was like, oh my god, Will's going to be in this giant MGM movie. It was really cool.
Well, let's talk about like the design of the werewolf in this. Like, I like that it harkens back to like, werewolves throughout cinema, where like you could kind of feel the artificiality in it, and obviously the artifice is like revealed when he's running around without the mask at the end and stuff. But like, where's like some of your design influences? How did that like design process go, creating your werewolf?
It's really hard to make it not look like a dude in a dog costume. It's really, really difficult from like any angle you get, unless you're hiding the shark. It looks like Chewbacca. It doesn't really look very scary. And so we tried to hide it as much as possible. So much so that the studio was like, we gotta hide the shark. We can't show the baller big wide shot of him and Hannah crawling backwards without her arm, which is arguably one of the dopest fucking shots in the movie. And I was like, well, no, we're actually trying not to hide the shark, because in Jaws, you do that because you want to make it seem like it's not that big of a shark. We need to convince the audience that it's a real werewolf, so that it's a surprise at the end when it's not. So I was like, if we show more shark, it'll be helpful in the middle. But design-wise, this guy Michael in Santa Monica has a monster shop. He's very cool. And then my buddy Lauren Wilde did the head. He did the kind of like lycra suit with all the fur off of it, and they kind of melded it together. But it's very simple. It's like a helmet that then has a lower mandible that comes up. I guess like the Howling is probably the closest.
Yeah,
thing.
and I was wondering about that because you're obviously a big Joe Dante fan, and you have the pointy ears, which are very reminiscent of the Howling.
Sure. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, obviously this is the last film of the great Robert Forster. It's dedicated to him. What was it like working with him? If you could share some memories of working with him, and how did you kind of get him to sign on to this?
He had acted in a film called Too Late that my producer at the time, Matt Miller, had produced, and so we kind of knew him. And it was close to the shoot. We were like really trying to find somebody to play my dad, and it's difficult to find somebody at that age that's like really meaningful and fucking awesome. And then Robert read the script, and he saw the Thunder Road feature, and I guess he had written, directed, and starred in a movie. It was a detective movie back in the day, and he was like, I will never do that again. He was like, it almost killed me doing this thing. But he had such the support of me doing the thing, and he was like, it's crazy, you could do all three, this would be a lot of fun. And so he liked me, and then came to set, and he was on set for a week and a half and just became the mascot of the movie, and everybody during lunch wanted to go up and ask him a bunch of questions. And Chloe East has a funny story. She like went and sat down with him, and she was like, look, I'm a cinephile, like love movies, love Jackie Brown. And she was like, do you know any good movies? I like have a letterbox account, I want to like add stuff, like what are your favorite movies? And he was like, oh, well, I've never seen a movie called Alligator. And she goes, no, I haven't. So she's like adding it to her letterbox account, and then she got home and realized it was just a bunch of Robert Forster movies. So he was really funny. He was just very grandfatherly and so supportive and so down, and it was great. He was just like a really lovely guy, exactly as you'd imagine. That monologue, the like 1978 bank robbery thing, he fucking killed. That was like day one of him on set, and it was perfect. It was everything that we needed from that moment. I was like, oh shit, we got a good dad character here. It's good.
I mean, it's I was wondering if there was like a personal element to the story, because it's such a fatherhood narrative, like him playing your father, and obviously the tension between you and your daughter character in the film. Like, was there like a personal story that you were trying to tell there, or did you just think that was like the interesting frame?
That's a really good question. So my dad is 87, going on 88, and still with us. And there was a moment we were shooting that scene where he like he collapses when everybody else is running out, and I was talking to him, and I'm like on my knees, like they're gearing up, turning the world around, and he's sitting in the chair, and I was like, yeah, no, my dad's 85, and he like was a lawyer for years, and then like retired, but then couldn't retire, and now he's like working all the time. Everybody's trying to get him to stop working, and it's like, you know, you're an old man, you should retire now. And I said, and he won't do it. And then Robert goes, yeah, why quit? How long are we gonna take here? He was like, so he was like trying to get the moment going, and that was him. He died acting. He basically was like, did the Breaking Bad movie, and then this, and then passed away in like 6 months or something like that. Crazy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. His presence is really felt in this one.
Yeah.
The Utah location is such a character in this film. Like, you really feel that place, like that desolate, like wiped out looking landscape. Like, I don't know, was that challenging to shoot it in like what looks like real snow, real cold?
There's so many Mormons up there. It's awful. No. So we went out, and I had been there because of Sundance, and I had been there as a kid skiing like one year. And so I knew the area a bit, and the Utah Film Commission was super supportive, and they were like, oh yeah, come on, let's check out all these locations. We went around, it was great, and like found all the spots, and I was there from January 1st until like April shooting this movie. So we were there 2 months in advance, just locking locations and trying to find good spots. It was really cool, and everybody was super nice. They're like, oh, you're shooting a movie? Could you come shoot in my house? Do I have to be here? You just take the whole place.
Was it like Park City or
it was Colville, so it's like north of Park City, and then we shot in a town called Camas. That's like kind of the next biggest town, and then the place where we shot the bars is like this really podunk town called Samak, which is just Camas backwards, because that's how tiny the town is. They just flipped the name, and that's now the name of the town.
Notice.
Nobody will notice. Yeah. But that whole bit of me where I insult the entire state by going Utah when I'm talking about incompetence, we wrote on set, and I was like, I think the Utah Film Commission might be pretty frustrated with us if we put this in the movie. We shot it, and then that evening, a couple of local crew members were like, thank you for putting that in the movie. I say that at least once a week.
Let's see. I mean, I want to talk a bit about the music too. It has such a really serene tone. The whole movie has this balance of like, it's really like comic, big energy, a lot coming from your character, who's kind of like the, biggest energy character in the whole piece, but then like, it has this very serene kind of like relaxed tone to the rest of it, with the landscapes and the music, and like, was that something that your composer kind of found, or was that like, what was your like reference of like how this movie should feel when you were talking to your composer?
Yeah, there's a song called Sunset Strings that's in Krisha, one of my favorite movies of the last couple decades, and I used to put that into like all of my early work, and this is like a really beautiful, meditative, kind of like nostalgic strings. It's just like very simple things. And I sent that to Ben Lovett, our composer, and I was like, this is kind of the feel that I want. I'm just like simple strings, semi-drone, and then for the big detective stuff, percussive, orchestral stuff. And then I would send him stuff like the whole 360 shot of like with the steady cam going around the second crime scene, his crime scene. I was like, oh, I want it to feel like Prokofiev, just like kind of this like big Russian thing. And he was like, I have 6 players. This is not going to sound that big, but like, I'll do my best. And he fucking killed it. So there was times where like we would have strings and like stems of stuff, and we would stretch it out and make it work for each of these moments. But really, it was just like I wanted to make something that felt haunting and serene at the same time, because that's what the landscape is like.
Yeah, it definitely comes across. I wanted to go back to like your sort of development process for this. I know that a lot of people in here are like young filmmakers, independent filmmakers, and stuff like that. So this is your third feature directing effort.
Yes, it is.
And
most people only say the second. Good call. It is.
But Thunder Road was a big success for you, and obviously there was probably, you found yourself in that zone where there was more opportunities for what you'd want to do next, and this is probably a higher budget project. Was it hard to get this off the ground? Could you talk a bit about the development?
Yeah, so we had a really interesting development process. I wrote it as a web series because when I won Sundance for the short of Thunder Road, I was only really going to get stuff as a short filmmaker. And so doing a web series, people were still financing that stuff back in the day. So I wrote this thing as a web series with Newform Digital, one of the co-production companies. And then knowing I always wanted it to be a feature, I was like, oh, we could always re-edit it as a feature. That could be really cool. And then we went and pitched it as a feature to a couple of different places, and they said, no, you can't do that. And also, it's 2019, can the werewolf kill men as well? You can't just kill female victims. And I was like, well, serial killers do it all the time. And they just told us no. And then we won South by Southwest with the feature of Thunder Road, and that same week, we got emails on the same email chains saying we don't want this project, saying, hey, what's going on with that werewolf project?
So you had come up with this before the Thunder Road feature?
Well before the Thunder Road
wow.
feature. It was like I wrote it in the heat in Echo Park in a tiny apartment, and I was like, man, it would be cool to get all my friends up to go have a snowball fight somewhere. And I was like, let's do a winter werewolf movie. But then we got greenlit within a week, basically, of winning South by Southwest for the feature. And then immediately everybody had notes, everybody wanted to do something different, and it got to a point where I just had to pull the trigger and say, we can't take any of these, and if you do want to ruin the film, I'm going to have to step away from it, thank you so much. And then they were like, you can do whatever you want. But yeah, it was a very strange development process. And then I did a podcast of it. Every time we make a script, I record it as a podcast and put in music and sound design so we can all hear what the movie is. And we all agreed that was the film that we wanted to make. And then the second the film was done, the executives were like, well, I don't know if I trust your decision-making faculties. But I'm going to get rid of all these scenes. I was like, all right, this is fun.
And then going on to the beta test, was that a smaller filmmaking process?
Yeah, so Thunder Road was $190,000. We shot in Austin, the feature. And then Wolf Snow Hollow was $2.1 million. We shot in Utah. And then the beta test was $350,000. And we shot that in Los Angeles. And that was very independent. We shot agency offices stuff in the leasing office of our building. So very small.
And did you feel that was freeing after having to deal with nodes and micromanagement? Yeah. Let's talk a bit about just you star in all your movies. You write the characters for yourself, I'm guessing based on what you know you can play, but I don't know, what is that process like, just directing yourself and trying to play kind of against type and I don't know, you play a very interesting character in this film, and was that challenging to be I'm going to be a different guy from the guy in Thunder Road and make a very unique performance in this, which is the highlight of the movie, I think.
Yeah. This is Nick Cage's favorite movie of mine, which is really
Oh, really?
the loudest I scream, I think. But yeah, no, I wanted to go to 11. I always find it to be very funny watching a guy freak out, especially in a uniform. Yeah, I don't know. I really played the part in Thunder Road out of necessity, where you can hire an actor to do a short film, but they're on a leash of a little bit of money, and they may not memorize it or rehearse it as much as you would. So then I was 2 weeks out, and I was like, well, shit, I know every line. I have 24-hour access to the lead actor, and then I had learned cinema from making stuff as a producer and then doing all my short films. I'd made 10 single-take short films before doing the Thunder Road features. I'd already made more than a feature's worth of content doing that, seeing what works and seeing what didn't with my biology. And I was like, I'm going to be in the frame. I can do these jokes and slapstick and it can work. And then Thunder Road was successful, and I was like, all right, let's just keep rolling the dice until people find out I'm a phony.
Well, there's a lot of great performance
You
moments
fools.
in this. I love did you injure yourself making this? Like there's
Oh,
so
fuck
many
yeah.
you
Fuck
like
yeah.
hit that microwave door
got
and the
fucking-
glass breaks. And
Yeah, I got scars all over my body from Jackie Chan. I got I opened up an artery here doing Thunder Road, breaking into the glass of the car. Had to super glue it shut because we were shooting more stuff that evening. For a month after shooting this movie, I couldn't lift anything over my shoulder because of like slamming the door a whole bunch. Yeah, of course. Of course.
Talking about the physical performance, this audience before the feature did watch It's Now a Good Time, which played outrageously well. Lots of laughs. Did you ever think Disney was gonna kill you for making this movie? Were you worried about that?
I was worried most about, speaking of personal injury, I was going to suffer some serious damage to my asshole because of Disney. No, for a while I was nervous about it. I was writing it and I was pitching it to bad influences and friends of mine, and they were like, yeah, you got to do it. You should do it. I was on set for Barry, and I pitched it to Bill Hader, and he was like, "Oh man, that's so funny." And so I just got pushed off a cliff a bit, and then we shot it again with all of the IP and fucking me saying Marvel Disney the whole time. It's so great. The disclaimer comes up and is like, "This has nothing to do with Marvel Disney," and then I go, "Hi, I'm Kyle with Marvel Disney." And so we were a bit handcuffed to it, and then I only really stressed out about it afterwards because around the same time, Disney was suing a father for having a Spider-Man image on his son's gravestone. And I thought, well, if they're gonna sue that guy, they're probably gonna get to me. And then they didn't. And it's totally fine, and America's great, and parody law is fantastic, and anybody can do whatever the fuck they want. And
Are you allowed to share? I mean, can you share the anecdote about the shell company name that you?
Oh yeah, sure.
came up with? Yeah.
So yeah, the movie is owned by a company called Their Gay Employees. So if they sued us, it would say Walt Disney Corporation versus Their Gay Employees.
And talk about the decision to make yourself a gay character in that movie. Like, it adds like this other layer to it beyond just the comedy of
Well,
everything.
Off the record, we tried to cast a couple of my favorite gay comics, and I like reached out to them. I was like, "Hey, would you do this thing?" And they read it, and then they were like, "I really have to send this past my lawyer because Hulu is owned by Disney, and there's a bunch of other companies that are owned by Disney. And so if somebody has a pilot in development at a place like that, it's very possible the thing goes away if they're making things like this." And then I realized that I was trying to ventriloquism somebody else and force them to take the risk instead of me doing it if I got a gay actor to do it. And then it got down to 2 or 3 weeks out again, and I was like, what's the worst that can happen? I'll do it, and then it'll be fine. And I felt like I could do it, and we just did it, and it was fine. It's the first time I ever kissed a boy. It was great. Everybody should do it. It was great.
It's hilarious. It's and I really just admire your spirit as like an independent filmmaker. Do it yourself. Don't let anybody tell you no. Don't let Disney tell you no.
Yeah.
It's just
That's the
very
craziest
inspiring.
thing to me. That like, we all know that you can say whatever you want, but then there's this like group of people outside of that really are intimidated by it. Like, it feels like they don't want to get in trouble, they don't want to be confrontational or something, but we all know that the movies aren't very good that they make. And so it shouldn't feel like, that's what's so great about comedy. If you say something honest about China and its influence over stuff, everybody laughs, because like, yeah, we all know this stuff. It's like, I don't know, it's so addictive as a filmmaker to be honest and radically honest, and I don't think I'm going to turn back.
I love the bit where you're saying it's 3 hours and 45 minutes long. By the way, it's 3 hours and 45 minutes long, and of course the
Lawrence of Arabia is a shorter fucking movie.
and then you see the Lawrence of Arabian rope posters. It's so funny. What was the decision to put that? I just have to ask, that shot of the like sunset as the movie's playing.
Yeah.
The kids watching the movie. There's this grand
It's
sunset.
two of them. The opening shot of like coming in on the mountains, and it's like
Yeah.
the world waking up, and then that one when the sun is setting. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, it's the kid is dying metaphorically,
Mhm.
but also I wanted to have something about life and nature outside of corporate doublespeak. That like the planet is its own thing, and like, you know, it was just two beautiful shots. I thought it had to be very beautiful and natural because the thing is about how cheesy and awful corporate life is and PR is.
And I have to ask, were some of the Marvel posters in the kids' room like AI?
So they were when we shot them, and then I had to pay my buddy Colin Black to comp all of them out. So like we initially had very shitty AI posters on there, and then some of them were actual like Captain America posters.
Yeah.
And then my lawyer was like, "Well, you should just replace all of them because they can sue you for having the Captain America thing in." So then we went to DeviantArt and just got like a bunch of people to come in and clean up some stuff. It was like literally painting over some of the stuff that we had. Like Captain America, or no, the Iron Man one is very close to the Iron Man poster, the teaser one, and then we just like painted over it. That counts as parody.
It's awesome. It's so funny. I want to open it up to a few audience questions. Right there.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for doing this. I don't know that I've ever seen enjoyed watching an actor play frustrated and exasperated more than watching you in like this movie
Wow.
and Thunder Road. So like, when did you realize that was like almost like your superpower in acting?
I always liked watching Ricky Gervais do it in The Office. I always liked watching Steve Coogan do it in Alan Partridge. And then like Borat, like I grew up watching cringe comedy, and there's something to watching somebody in a suit have a breakdown that's very funny, and also very challenging. It's like, you know, you can see something like Death of a Salesman is the same kind of thing. Like we appreciate drama and comedy in both of them. And then I did Thunder Road, the short, as just this like humiliation pornography of just like watching this guy fucking break down, and it was so funny and also so earnest. I've never gone to acting school, but I have a lot of ambition and like pettiness for bad acting. I'm like, I could do it better than that. And that became the foundation of my career, pettiness. But I did it that one time, and then I was like, oh, I could probably do this. And then just got more amped up, and this is like at 11. This was like insane. But thank you for saying that. It means a lot.
Right there.
Why Ricky Tikki Tavi?
Ricky Tikki Tavi is a story about a mongoose that kills a snake that is trying to harm a town and a family. And so...
But what, it's like a 5th grade literature. Like, I hadn't heard that reference
Oh, yeah.
since
Yeah.
elementary school.
I just like her doing that because she's younger, and I was like, oh, that could be a funny thing. You're not Ricky Tikki Tavi, and you're not Grandpa. I thought that was really great. Of like, you couldn't protect us, but Grandpa could. I don't know. I just like that. It's a funny thing to say.
Other questions right there.
I guess this is coming from more like an aspiring filmmaker type of question. My writing partner and I want to direct features as well, and we kind of talk a lot about how we want our sets to be run. I heard you say in an interview you want your sets to feel like summer camp.
Sure.
And I was just wondering if you could talk more about that, like how you do that and
Yeah.
what the benefit of that is.
Yeah, sure. So my character's house in this film was a farmhouse in Colville, Utah, and it housed 19 people. So I slept there, a lot of cast and crew slept there, and we all had dinner together after we would shoot somewhere, we'd come back, and it was freezing cold, so we'd be drinking whiskey and hanging out, and it was just a wonderful amount of camaraderie. And it felt so much better at that time in my life than like legacy corporate entertainment style filmmaking where everybody's in separate hotel rooms and then like sneaking outside to smoke cigarettes and stuff. Like it felt so much more communal, and we could have a meeting while drunk at the night about like production design and how that influences the cinematography. It just felt like we were all working together. Obviously, I'm in my late 30s now. You can't always do that, but starting out, it was very beneficial, budget, schedule, and morale-wise.
Other questions for Jim in the back there.
Hey, my name's Jonathan. I really enjoyed the movie. So my question is a two-parter. With there being a lot of, I guess, misleads or red herrings, whatever you want to call them in that movie, do you think the fact that it took place in a small town, I'm guessing the South, or in the middle of nowhere, wherever it was, do you think it kind of lends itself well to that? Also, when the guy injected himself, Did you think about American Werewolf in Paris? So I'm like, oh, maybe he's trying to turn himself into the wolf. I don't know. That's
Sure.
not really-
Yeah, I mean, I watched all the werewolf movies. It's funny, where like I'm watching stuff now, and I'm like, oh yeah, I stole that from something. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the location definitely influenced the story, and I definitely stole a lot and plagiarized a lot.
To clarify, what I mean when I say lends itself well to that, it's like if I'm in the South, yeah, I buy that two hillbillies are throwing out slurs.
Right.
Yeah, I buy that a wolf is
Yeah.
coming into someone's house.
So one of the things that got me for the red herring, the like trailer killer guy, I read Mindhunter by John Douglas, and there's a story where they were doing a proactive investigation where they were trying to catch this guy who was a serial killer, and they made a big deal of burying one of the victims, and then they installed recording equipment on the grave, hoping that the killer would come to the grave, and they had this whole stakeout late at night. In the middle of the night, these cops are sitting by doing a stakeout, and they start hearing somebody crying in the graveyard and apologizing, and they're like, we got our guy. And so they race up, and the guy's at another grave, and they solve another murder because somebody just happened to be there. And I was like, that's crazy, but it happens. And so it was funny, one of the executives was like, this feels crazy. And I was like, oh no, it happens all the time.
Other questions for Jim? Cyrus.
Hey, I really got curious, especially during the shot of the killer hissing inside of his werewolf outfit. I just thought, like, the conception of a guy dressing up as a werewolf slaughtering people is, like, pretty crazy and really inspired. I was just curious when that came to you during the writing process. Was that part of the conception of the movie, or was that a discovery?
Yeah, no, totally. I really like that movie, Les Diaboliques, the French movie, where it's like they're trying to gaslight this woman into thinking that the ghosts are real, then it turns out there's just she and her fucked up husband trying to like kill this girl for the insurance money. I'd say spoiler alert, the movie came out fucking 70 years ago. But it's a really good black and white French movie. It's very, very, very good. But the twist is Les Diaboliques, the Diabolicals.
Okay.
But it's a really wonderful, stressful horror ghost movie until it's not. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. You can make a movie that's poignant about, werewolves not being real. The real scary thing is your neighbor. And I was like, that's a very poignant thing that I like. So yeah, I'm a non-believer in a lot of stuff, and a lot of people that are like really into the werewolf lore hate this movie. But I don't know, I dig it. It's not really a werewolf movie, it's a serial killer movie.
Right.
I mean, I think it's a great, like, spooky Halloween season movie. Plays great here. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I love the last shot of you and Robert Forster. Right before you collapsed.
Yeah.
Was that in the edit? Was that in the writing? And why did you do it?
So we shot that in slow-mo when it was us leaving, when I'm shouting at the photographer and he keeps trying to come back, and the guy's like, hey, they're saying it was a massacre. He's like, don't print that shit. He's like, that whole sequence. He was so earnest, that joke of coming back and shouting, getting pulled back into the fray. We shot that in just that one cross coverage overs of us looking at each other and admiring each other. I was like, that's such a nice moment, and I knew it wasn't going to be used in that scene, but I was like, oh, this could be really great for the ending, where it's like, oh, I've lived up to my father's expectations, and I like made this promise come true. The last thing I promised I was going to catch the guy, and then I didn't, and then I finally shoot him in the face, and then I look up and I'm like, I did the thing, and exhale, and I'm like, doesn't matter, whatever, and I'm almost going to die because of this stupid relationship between a man and his son, or his son and his dad. It's like men do so much stuff to try to impress their dads, and I don't know. It was very poignant to me to have the guy almost die because of that. But no, it was emotional. It's like this guy who dies halfway through the movie, 3/4 of the way through the movie, and then it's clearly eating at him, and then he finally gets the gratification of shooting him in the face as many times as possible.
I was wondering, like, on that last shot, did you make any changes when Robert Forster passed? Like, last-minute changes based on that?
Brett, correct me if I'm wrong. When we were shooting, I was difficult. I wanted to shoot a scene that we shot of the mom leaving me as a kid. And then that was what came up when I shot him the first time. And I was like, it's going to work. It's going to be brilliant. And then we would screen it for friends, and they were like, who are those characters? And I was like, oh, it's this bit that I said earlier about the mom leaving, and now he's finally gratified at that thing. And they're like, we don't give a shit about these new, like, where's Robert Forster? Do you have shots of, like, obviously do that. And then I was like, all right, fine, I'm dumb. I don't want to do that.
One more.
obviously you can say like, oh, it's whatever you think it is, but like the last shot when your daughter finds the condoms and she's
There's
like,
a very real answer to this, and
okay,
I
and
watched
and then
it.
she like looks back
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay.
I watched it now, and I was like, oh, how much do we show? How much don't we? And the next shot is me walking out and putting one less loop in my belt buckle, and then walking out. And I'm in the back next to Brett, and I go, yep. And I was like, as the completely separated from, I haven't seen this movie in years. The only other time we see me fuck with my belt is when I take my dad's gun out of the evidence and put it behind me, and then do another belt loop on the thing. And it's like, he left the gun, his dad's gun, on a college campus. It's awful. Anyway.
That's so funny. Any other questions for Jeff? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you ever get praise from alcoholics?
Yeah, I've had a couple people. It's really emotional. So I'm sober 3 years now. I was still drinking for all of my movies, basically. It was the two shorts that we did was the first things that I did sober. But there's a couple of people that come up to me at film festivals, and they're like, hey, thanks for getting me sober. Love your Wolf movie. And then they'll walk away, and I'm like... I traumatize them with my family, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I now have to go cry in the bathroom for a minute because I helped this projectionist at the Alamo Draft House that I didn't even know about. Yeah, it's tough. You do that a lot. If you make movies that are emotional for people about real subjects, you become a lightning rod for that stuff, and people will sometimes call you in the middle of the night in dire straits to be like, oh, well, Jim can answer this question, and I'm like, all right, I guess I become that guy. It's tough. For Thunder Road, there's a dude who was walking past in a Carhartt jacket and left the theater, and he goes, passed me on the back like he was a buddy of mine. I thought it was like a producer, but then he turned around and he goes, hey, my mom, and left. And I was just then stuck in the middle of a conversation, kind of trying not to cry at whatever this grown man in his 60s went through, and it's terrible. It's like it's a really good. But I walked into it. I asked for it.
Anybody else? Oh yeah, right there. Yeah.
John.
So I think it's an interesting world that you build. Are there any like thoughts or plans for a sequel or spin-off? Maybe more supernatural cases?
Man, I love reboots. I don't know. Not right now. Not right now. I don't think so. I'm doing something. The next movie that we made was called The Beta Test, and it's about a talent agency. And the thing I'm starting to shoot in 2 weeks is about a talent agency. So I'm doing something that's a similar space to that. I haven't told anybody about it, so y'all are the first. So.
The beta test is great.
Oh,
Seen it a
thanks.
couple times.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, you
that
poor thing.
Opening,
yeah, the knife
is
stab.
just fucking.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
And if you guys haven't seen Last Stop Yuma County, Jim,
yeah,
it's
it's
amazing.
fun.
Massive.
Baller.
We screened it here, and it's great.
It's a
It's
fun
great.
movie.
No, you can rent it here.
I think it's playing at the zoo.
Yeah, it's playing soon at the American Cinematheque at Bryce Feliz.
It's right here.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Steve.
Stupid head.
A bit of a softball. You're in the very sort of small cadre of actors that get to be part of the Halloween franchise. Do you have a favorite Halloween sequel that's not the one that you're in?
Season the Witch is really fun.
Yeah.
I liked 2018, which is why I signed on to do Halloween Kills. Yeah, that was the first really big movie that I was in. I had followed David Gordon Green for years, and then it was one of the reasons I got into making movies. I saw All the Real Girls when I was in high school, and I was like, oh, Southern dudes can make movies. This is cool. But yeah, I think probably Season the Witch. That's a fun one.
And did he find you through Thunder Road and was just like,
I
you
was
want to do
pen
this?
pals with him for like 12 years, since high school. I found his
Wow.
email address on some blog when I was in high school, and I was like, dude, I really love your movie. And then he and I have been pen pals, and then he saw Thunder Road again on an airplane when they were casting Kills, and then he called me and was like, hey man, you want to come on down to Wilmington and come shoot a movie with me? And I was like, do I have to audition? And he was like, no man, come on down, it'll be a lot of fun. and so I got cast in it, and then Blumhouse had to bring me in to be like, we gotta make sure this guy's not a lunatic. Like David can't just like cast willy-nilly like big parts of the movie. So I went and hung out with them for a minute. Actually had like the biggest realization as a director to actors on that set. Shooting at like 3 a.m. We're shooting down the street, and it's like, all right, you gotta go find Michael. I'm gonna stay here and like we're gonna walk off this way. So it's kind of like funny scene, had all this fun improv, and then we're flipping the world, and David goes, that was great, that was great. Hey Jim, do you want a coffee? And I went, no, I'm fine. And he goes, all right. And he walked down the street, and I turned to the rest of the co-stars and said, did I not do it with enough energy? And they go, no, he wanted to get coffee. We wanted to hang out with you. And I was like, oh, I've become an actor. I felt so inadequate that he was trying to tell me something without telling me that I needed to do it with more energy. But immediately I became an actor with inadequacy traps. It was fun.
And when you were in that, I have to ask, just like as a fan of the series, like, did
also,
you?
Halloween is my birthday.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, soon. Happy birthday to Jim. As a fan of that series, did you feel like I'm on like hallowed ground right now? This means a lot to a lot of people. Like when you do something like that, it's like, you know, you could, you know, be the third victim of Jason in part 2 or whatever at some con, like for the rest of your life. Like, did you feel like, not that you're on to better things than that, but I'm just saying, did you really realize like the weight of like being a part of like that universe?
I knew it was gonna be funny, and that was the main thing. Like, could I do it? Like, why are they casting me, or are they casting someone to get killed? And so, like, the fact that I read the script, and there's that bit where I'm coming through the house, and the dead dog is in the living room, and the character goes, "There's a dead dog in here," and then the other guy goes, "What's that?" And I go, "Nothing." And I keep walking, and I was like, "That's me." That feels like I got spooked for a second, and then I didn't want to spook him, and then like we're all scared walking through this house. That felt like a Looney Tune or something like that. So no, I knew it was gonna be fun. I had no idea that they were gonna spend $100 million in advertising, and that it was gonna be like the biggest movie of that season. It was just fun to hang out with Dan McBride and David Gordon Green in Wilmington for a week, and Thomas Mann, he's fucking awesome.
That's awesome. I mean, I even feel some Dan McBride in like some of your characters.
Oh yeah.
Like, has he influenced your writing and his performances?
Shit, so much. Eastbound and Down is like such an influence on me. Watching somebody be an absolute asshole, it's wild. It is wild to watch that show again.
And just last question from me. You know, you mentioned that this is only like the third time you've seen this with an audience. Obviously, like I said, it was released during the lockdown. Do you feel like things would have been like different for you for this movie?
It would have been much worse. So, the film was supposed to come out in March of 2020. Obviously, it didn't. Halloween Kills was supposed to come out in October of 2020, and it got pushed a full year. So did Candyman, so did all of these giant legacy corporate Hollywood movies that were Halloween related. So that means that Scare Me and Wolf of Snow Hollow were on the top of iTunes in a way that no other independent genre films would have. I mean, we seized the day. It was like, it was the best possible thing to happen to the movie. And the same thing with beta tests. Because of the algorithm of iTunes, we put out this movie that was 10 times as small, and people still wanted to see it. It's like, it is a really wonderful time because Hollywood is actively falling apart around us, that independent people can make shit and stand out.
And they can make shit that is deliberately pissing in the face of giant corporations, which is awesome.
I'm doing it again in 2 weeks.
Well, we can't wait to see what that one is, but thanks so much for doing this with us. You're such an inspiration to so many young up-and-coming filmmakers. I love that you do it your own way. I love that you'll never stop doing it your own way. Just being you and just putting yourself on screen and being fearless with it. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. As always, thank you.